Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Her Excellency Natasha Wright.
Good morning. Good morning. No, you guys hungry? Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we doing this morning? Beautiful. It is just such an honor to be here. Both my husband and I, we move around quite a bit. We're very busybody people. But this is what's home to us. This is who we are. Being able to share with individuals, regardless of your background. We're happy to be here, but even more excited that we're with our diaspora people, right? We know that the Caribbean carries a really big punch, and there is just something so unique, so special about us because of where we're from. I don't want anybody to be jealous, but I do have a feeling that, maybe God, heaven, there's a little slice of heaven in that area, don't you think? I think so, right? And so it is indeed a pleasure to be here. I give honor to all our purpose partners, to every registrant, to our media personnel. It is a blessing. Now today I have been tasked with just speaking about developing confidence for purposeful living. And we're not just talking about personal development, but in our career. Now, you heard a little bit of my bio, but there's a little part that I have to share with you. I was born and raised in a community called Almontown in Kingston, Jamaica. Anybody have you ever heard of that name? All right, we have one or two persons. What? You went to my God. I'm going to give you a book. Here you go, the first gift, right? I know you're going to say this speaker is biased. Absolutely. Absolutely, I am. I went to micro-practicing as well. I was born and raised in Almontown. Now, let me share with you. Almontown is not uptown. It's downtown, but it's the ghetto. All right? So it's not the upper echelons of society. Now, although I was raised poor, I really do not ever remember going to bed hungry. Any of you remember such circumstances? You know you didn't have much, but you know you always had food and a roof over your head, right? So you've learned to be grateful for those mercies, small mercies. And I remember while going to micro-practicing, I was in grade 5, came home and found my house completely burned down. 10 years old. Can you imagine how devastating that was? Not even to be able to find clothes to wear to go to school. First traumatic experience. 8 months after I came home, and this was the worst news. This was actually my great-grandmother telling me, that's a day, that's my nickname. You know, hear your father dead. I hope you guys understand the patois. You understand what I just said? She said, Sadie, your father died. 10 years old. My father was shot and killed in the line of duty. He was a police officer. And from a very young age, I believe I suffered because I was so depressed and I was down. My father was my everything. I was a daddy's girl. And fast forward in the story, I moved on to Woolmer's High School for girls. And I'm now in 5th form. I remember one Saturday, my mom had an asthma attack. And she said, you know what? I need you to stay with your younger brother. I'm going to go to KPH, get some help, get treatment, and come back. And so she said, the only thing I need you to do for me is to go get a taxi. And I went and I got the taxi for her, right? Good little girl, I was being obedient. And I watched my mother leave that house and got in the cab. 2 hours later, I got a call that my mother died under treatment. She died from that asthma attack. 16 years old. Now I have another book to give away. Somebody tell me, what day did she die? Ron, you cannot win a prize, Ron. You are excluded, sir. Who else said it? It was a Saturday. Yes, all right. Guys, aren't you jealous? One table getting all the gifts. Yes. Saturday. It was a Saturday night. Monday morning, I had 8 CXC exams to sit. For those who don't know what CXCs are, those are the secondary exams that you have to do to be able to move on to university. I had 8 of them. And I pushed through. Didn't want to, but I did because my mother said she wanted me to get at least 6 of the 8 subjects. After my mother died, my grandmother, who came from the States to live in Jamaica, she returned home. My brother and I went to live with her. 1 year after my mother died, that grandmother died from cancer. I just started university. I decided I was still going to pursue studies. By the time I left university, I was a complete mess, but I was still pushing. Now guys, I gave you the back end, living in poverty, seeing gang violence, going through molestation, going through a lot of things, but you still heard my bio. Now this is not a part of my presentation, but I want to share with you, just in case you forgot, because a lot of you are still sitting here, you somehow have forgotten where you're coming from. You don't look or smell anything like where you're coming from. And so I want to remind you that your present situation won't always be. This is not your destiny. This is just a season. This is just a phase. So in case you forgot, this won't always be your life, should you desire to move forward. And so I had to give you a little bit of my roots. Now today, our company, Mind Food International, we have about 100 staff members. We work a lot with corporate, work with government. I am a lot in different organizations in an HR capacity. I've seen a lot of things. Some I can share with you even during this presentation. Now with all of that you've heard, do you think you can learn a thing or two about confidence from me? Absolutely. Now there are things that we go through in our lifetime that has allowed us to this day to be feeling the effects of it. How many of us, we are in our jobs, an opportunity comes up and someone says, hey Yolan, you should apply for that position, and Yolan is like, why? I don't think I can fill that role. And they're like, of course you can, you're qualified. I see you, you have that leadership gifting, but she shies away from it. Why? Because she's a little bit insecure. She doesn't feel confident enough in herself. These are things that hold us back. And I'm going to be honest with you, because some of us aren't with ourselves. We tend to blame others for not being able to progress. But our greatest enemy is that same person in the mirror. It's that same person in the mirror that prevents us from moving forward, prevents us from progressing, right? Even in our own personal development, because we are holding ourselves back based on whatever limitations or insecurities that we have. And there's one specific one I want to touch base on a little bit, and it's the imposter syndrome. How many of us have heard about the imposter syndrome? Everybody. Now, simply put, what is the imposter syndrome? One person. Anybody, somebody. I don't want to be like Yolanda, and I don't want to be picking on people. So you just get up quickly and tell me, what do you think that is?
You don't feel like you belong.
Exactly. You don't feel like you belong. Or some of us were in roles. You qualified for the role. You were promoted for the role. You're in the position doing the job, but you feel like a fraud. You feel like somebody's going to find you out. You feel as though it was a buck-ups. You know, in our own colloquialism, we say buck-ups like it's a mistake, it's a coincidence, right? Something happened and it's a happenstance. That's how we ended up there. But it's not true. It's stemming from your own issues. It's stemming from things that may have happened to you to cause you to believe that you are not worthy. You are not worthy. That's what you tell yourself. Now, there are different forms of this imposter syndrome. The first one is a perfectionist. I remember while I was in school, when we had, what do you call it when your parents come and speak to your teacher? And they give review? Parents teacher meeting or whatever. I remember there was this one particular teacher, it was my accounting teacher. When she saw my mom, she said, "Mommy, I have one issue with your daughter. She's an excellent student. If your daughter looks on the paper and she feels like something is out of place, we're in trouble. Because your daughter is going to do everything over." And she said, "That worries me." And it's true, even till this day, you can ask Mr. Wright. If I look at something and it's not quite done, you know, I ask him to sweep or ask him to do something and I feel like you're taking too long. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And you just get mad and you start doing it yourself. That perfectionist part of you that feel as though everything needs to be on point. All right? There's another one, the superman or woman. How many of you do everything for everybody in the family? Even when you're dying. My friend with the phone. Everybody call you for help. Not true?
Right.
Yeah, man. It's almost like you're the professed God in the family. So everybody calls you for everything. That is burdensome. That is too much. It's also a part of the imposter syndrome. What about the natural genius? They say with the natural genius, if you don't get something right away, for example, two counterparts are in the same department, you have a particular goal, one gets it straight off the bat, the other one is like, what the hell? And they're like, I'm a failure. Why? Because one's good at math? No. That's also an imposter syndrome. Because you think that you ought to get everything right. You ought to know everything. No, you don't. The next one, the soloist. Let's talk about the soloist. You don't want to be on the team with anybody. You don't want to do any group work. You don't want to be a part of any project. You don't want to be in this group because they're just going to cramp your style and you can't deal with the excess talk in Myanmar. Where the introverts, they want to stay to themselves, right? Soloists, you think you can do everything yourself. My husband likes to say that if you want to go far, you need a team. You can't do it by yourself.
Nope.
Right? And then the last one, the expert. You will never live long enough to know everything. Let me remind you, you will never live long enough to know everything. So we need each other. These are also some characteristics of imposter syndrome, and we all suffer from it, even in our career development. We just think that if we don't have every single area down pat, we are frauds. We're not worthy, right? We're not leaders, we're not good leaders. As if we don't understand that every leader had some issue going on. I remember talking to one pastor once, and he said, "Oh, you know, Martin Luther King wasn't a great leader, he smoked." And I was like,
So
let's be
what?
honest. If you were in his shoes, I'm sure you would be doing worse. Imagine all the stress he had to go through. Some of us would do far worse. And so we have to be conscious that, listen, development can take place. You have to understand that you are a work in progress. If you don't get anything else, you're a work in progress. I want to share some practical steps with you. I'm very cognizant of the time. About how you can develop the confidence that is required for you to grow personally and in your career. The first thing you have to do is you have to separate feelings from facts. How many of us wake up in the morning and you didn't feel like coming here? Be honest. You're tired. You're saying it's a Saturday. I want to lie down. I want to watch some reality TV. I want to enjoy myself. All right, ball game, all these different things. But you're here and the feeling is completely different. But if I'm to be honest, a lot of us live in our feelings. Don't. You don't feel like going to the gym. You don't feel like eating right. You don't feel like praying. You don't feel like talking to anybody. So you work off of feelings. That is a sure way to become a failure. You cannot operate in your feelings because feelings aren't facts.
Right.
And I'm not negating that you don't feel down. I'm saying to you that you won't always feel like this. So you have to be able to push past feelings. And so when you're feeling as though, listen, I'm not doing well right now, start separating how you feel from what's truly happening. Let's say one day you go into work, your boss seems to have a little attitude. Instead of you getting upset and saying, geez, they want to fire me, sit for a little bit before you react and say, well, maybe they're having a bad day. How about that? Instead of reacting and saying, well, I'm not talking to her either, right? And when she calls you, you ignore it and all these different things. What are you doing? You're fueling a situation that you don't even understand where it's coming from. Separate feelings from facts. Second one, take note of your accomplishments. A lot of us, when we start projects, when we're doing different things, we say, oh my, this is too big for me. Let's say that you're stepping out and you're doing your own business. As a businesswoman, my husband will tell you, sometimes I get projects and I look at it and I'm like, I don't think I can do that one. And he's like, why not? But you've done it before. And I said, when? He's like, yeah, think about it. You work with some. And I was like, oh yeah. A lot of us, we're doing work for people for free that we could be charging them as a business owner. Why? Because you feel as though there's no expectation over your head for you to deliver. And so you need to make a list of all your accomplishments to remind you that you've done this before. It's not your first rodeo. You've given this kind of support. So why not be paid for it? Why not be paid for it? Some of you are approaching promotion. Somebody's offering to promote you and you're saying, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. Why? Because you don't believe in yourself. Set goals. Setting goals is one true way of boosting confidence, because once you start achieving those goals, you will see that you really are something to value. You're somebody, yes you did it. And it propels you, it motivates you to keep going. Here's another one. Stop comparing. Stop comparing yourself. There was a point where I would dread, absolutely dread, speaking after Mr. Right. I was like, why are these people so cruel? Why did you put me after Mr. Right? Everybody knows that Mr. Right is supposed to close the show, right? That's a hidden rule. He closes the show because he's a tough act to follow. But I don't compare myself to Mr. Right. He's in a category all by himself. The next time you feel fearful about working with someone, working alongside someone, always remember, I'm in a category all by myself. I don't need to compare my page 5 to your page 40. We're in different chapters of our lives. Always remember that. You need to also ensure that you are always improving. We like to mention the Kaizen principle. It says continuous and never-ending improvement. If I come back next year, you should never catch Natasha the same way you saw her today. That is a law in my book. Something must change. Something has to give. Mind you, let's not use weight now. Because, us ladies, I don't know. Sally and I will work on it. We're going to try. But my God, something must be improving. You must be leveling up each time someone sees you. Continuous and never-ending improvement. And we're talking about how to build confidence. Focus on others. I know a lot of you are saying, why would you focus on others? How does that build confidence? How would that build confidence in yourself if you focus on others? Because it says, helping people is one sure way to greatness. Let me repeat that. Helping people is one sure way to greatness. It's not about living for ourselves. Mr. Wright said it earlier. You don't live for yourself, but you live to help others. And that will help you to boost your confidence because you see that you're important. You're valuable. Wherever you work, they need you. You show up every day to inspire somebody. And that will help you to gain confidence. Share your feelings. You don't, listen, this one. You don't share your feelings in harsh manner. My husband and I, we train people, we tell them about tact and diplomacy. You must know how to deliver what you're saying without hurting people. Yes, truth hurts, but we ought to know how to make things palatable. Yeah. You share your feelings. Stand up for yourselves. A lot of us are in situations where we do not state how we feel, and so you accept anything. That is one sure way to beat yourself down. All right? I'm going to add this last one. You need an active prayer life. I wasn't going to skirt around that one. Because if you have the right source, confidence is a must. If you know who sent you here, why he sent you here, on what assignment he sent you here, if you understood that you cannot fail at what he has sent you to do because he sent you here with a specific gifting, you would not be doubting yourself day in, day out.
Yes, correct.
The last thing I'm going to share with you. I walked with my badge specifically today because I wanted to show you guys. When Jamara and I were appointed as UN ambassadors, I hid it. I hid from it. I hid from the title because I still saw myself as that little girl in Almond Town. Wow. I did not want to hear anyone call me Her Excellency. I thought it was just crazy. It's just something that I don't understand. It sounds highfalutin. Doesn't make sense. And this badge, let me tell you how God is. I got my badge 2 years after being appointed a UN ambassador. And I would like to think that faith caused it that way because it took me that long to accept who I was or am. I did not accept it. There are many of you sitting in this room. You have an ID. You have a badge. You have a government-issued badge. Not from the government of America, not from the government of your respected island, but from the government of heaven. I'm imploring you to walk in whatever assignment you have been given and walk with confidence. Because if you don't do it, you're not going to be able to reach the people that you were destined to touch. When I got this badge, I was already promoted about 3 different times in my time in my UN organization. A few weeks ago, I was in Europe. I went to about 5 different countries. After being a part of this organization as a UN ambassador, I got an official appointment with the United Nations in Switzerland. Confidence is not a superficial thing. It comes from the anointing on your life. I promise you, if you take care of that, you won't ever worry about walking into any room, my friend. Because that room is being prepared for you, not you preparing for that room. And so I want you guys to take that away from me today. Own the rooms you walk into and walk with God. Thank you.